Douglas,
Vishal,
how are you?
very, very good.
We've seen a fair amount of each other in the last few days, I think, but thank you very much for the hospitality. Really enjoyed ourselves the last couple of days.
Yeah, really, really great few days. A little bit warm, but, we've got through it, and at least we're in an incredible environment here next to the Ponte Vecchio.
Yes. I think we have to give a shout out to the Hermitage Hotel for their hospitality. They've hosted us very nicely in this wonderful venue, so would like to thank them. We are in PT together this year to launch Fox Trots, an exclusive collaboration for Officine Palladino, woven for us by the esteemed Fox brothers. As a brand, it's the first time we're doing a joint collaboration, and we could not have imagined a better partner than Douglas and the Fox team. I'm going to get something out of the way before we roll into the questions.
Yeah.
We're twinning today.
We are. I see you've gone for a DB.
Yes.
I've gone for a single-breasted. And, it shows the versatility of this kind of cloth. It's a lovely mock leno, super, super classic.
Let's talk a little bit about the mock leno, because when we go into the collection later, the mock leno is quite a unique weave. Tell me a little bit about the history of the cloth. How did it come about? What do you like about it?
We have an extensive archive of cloth swatches, and we're known for flannel, which is a lovely cloth, obviously beautiful, but it's not an all-year-round cloth. And as we're experienced with climate change, the weather's changing a little bit faster than we kind of sometimes think. Mock leno is a great cloth for, I'd say, 3 seasons. The way that it's woven, it allows, if there is any air around it, allows the air to flow through the cloth and actually gives it a nice cooling sensation. Often people make the mistake of lining this kind of blazer. To me, unline the back, then you get the full benefit of the technical side of this cloth.
Yeah, and it's a very tailorable cloth as well. We've sampled it with a few tailors in the lead up to this event. But I'm going to segue a little bit because, we tried to brief ourselves a little bit before this. We had a super great lunch earlier, and even better conversation on the way back from lunch in this heat. Things I personally do not know about Douglas and Fox, and I would think it to be something very interesting for our audience to kind of hear about it. So in a slightly briefer format, tell us about how you started in fashion and how you eventually came to be the owner of Fox Brothers.
Gosh, a long journey. I started in textiles when I was around about 15, 16, I started playing around with, the classic printing T-shirts on my parents' kitchen table and realized I could sell them. So then I thought that's the commercial side of textiles sorted out. Went to art college to do a foundation. Wasn't really particularly interested in weaving. I was much more interested in fine art and graphics. I then went on to train at Chelsea School of Art in London. My first job was actually a screen printer. So I was screen printing ties for a company called David Evans, which is now part of the Adam Lee Group, still printing ties today.
Fantastic.
Then I moved into kind of a different area, lots of kind of painting floral designs, textiles designs, back when actually we didn't have computers. So it was all hand painted. So I used to paint designs and put them in replate and send them to various printers around the world. I then became involved in denim. My first, I can't say adult real job was at Pepe Jeans. And that was such a wonderful experience. The company was based in London, then it changed ownership. So I was sent to New York with a week's notice and had an absolutely fantastic time living in New York and working for Pepe Jeans and traveling around the world, sourcing product, making product. I then left Pepe Jeans to set up a design consultancy, further kind of works with all the brands around the world that were kind of involved with denim. And it was at that point that Pepe Jeans was sold to, Pepe Jeans actually bought Hackett London. To cut a long story short, I had a lunch with Jeremy Hackett in the Design Museum in London, and we were talking about English brands that weren't actually performing that well. And he said, do you know a company called Fox Brothers? And I thought, oh gosh, no, I don't. They were in Somerset, but I trained just 11 miles away from their location. And actually, I wasn't told in my education that there was a weaver next door, but that's a whole new story. I always remember this. At that lunchtime, Jeremy could see I was interested in that name. And he said, please, whatever you do, do not buy that mill. it's a nightmare. 3 weeks later, we got in the process of purchasing that mill with my business partner, Deborah Meaden. I went down to see it. I fell in love with the sound of weaving, the sound of, it was kind of the sound of history. And I rang Deborah and said, do you know what, you've got to come and have a look at this. You've got to come and have a look. Came over, and as I said, we ended up buying a majority of, well, a big chunk of the business. Literally 2 months later, another long story, we ended up owning the whole of the business. And we had a bit of a ride for 2 years. Deborah and I always say it's our character building moment of life. It was a long journey of really, it's just a huge learning process from being a graphic designer, a textile designer, and then running manufacturing. It was a very different journey, yeah.
You know, one parallel there, I think I've mentioned to you about my history.
Yes.
I used to work for Goldman Sachs for 10 years in New York and Hong Kong, and that was a big part of my identity growing up, what I wanted to do. I joined my family business, which is in fabric and fabric distribution, for 50 years on a pretty abrupt manner.
Wow.
If I may say so myself. But there's a parallel there between you just acknowledging that weaving fabrics was not part of your core identity. Yet today you are the co-owner of Fox Brothers, one of the most esteemed and oldest mills in the world. Can you tell us a bit about that? Coming from a different world and now embracing as a manager, as a director, surrounding yourselves with other talented individuals, untalented people to then create a fantastic product.
See, as I said, the first 2 years were kind of quite difficult. It's kind of understanding how manufacturing works, the people involved, the supply chain, where does the wool come from, how do you communicate to people? And I was constantly told, your cloth is too heavy, your cloth is too expensive. I was literally traveling around everywhere trying to rebuild the business or build the business. And that was what I was hearing. One of the first shows we ever did was in Milan. And I was lucky enough to have Ciro Peon from Keaton come onto the stand. And he literally changed my whole perception of what I had. Because in my mind, I was thinking, well, we can't make the cloth any cheaper because the price is the price. And, it's really important that people understand that this is not a vanity project. It's a project that needs to be accessed. It needs to employ people. We need to think about the succession, young people coming along and training them. Ciro said to me, he grabbed my arm and said, do you understand you have the Rolls Royce of mills? And from that day on, my whole attitude changed. It was like, okay, well, maybe it's you're the issue because you're using cheaper cloths, but we are the finest. And that's how, about the same time as Instagram and social media took off. So the timing was absolutely perfect. We really embraced social media and Instagram because it reaches the whole of the world and you can tell your story. Our story is a very genuine story. If you scratch beneath the surface of Fox Brothers, you'll find a guy called Dan, a lady called Alison, and they're all using their hands to make the most incredible product. And I must say now that I am so blessed with having such a talented team that by and large, we will have our moments as we all do, but by and large, there's lots of laughter happening along the road we're making. Everybody seems to be very happy. We're very proud of what we do and how we do it because it is so hard.
Some wonderful points there. I think a few that resonates with me. The first thing was surrounding yourselves by talented individuals to run the whole machine, right? And then using new tools like social media that you mentioned to reinvent the profile, right? It resonates something with me as well with how I started this journey from a finance background, coming into fabrics, wanting to build an identity of myself outside of fabric distributorship, which is what Virginia Palladino is. But at the same time, we are a team. I surround myself. My partner is 30 years in the fabrics business. He knows a lot more about fabrics than I do, although I think I know a little bit also. But then embracing new ways of doing things. You've seen how we present our collection, bright orange, capture attention in a lookbook style presentation, creating content about the tailoring industry and how that has changed over time, right? Because you have to evolve to stay relevant. And I think that's some of the key messages that you've put across. despite the modernity, another shared value that we have is quality, right? Because at the end of the day, we sell fabrics. The raw ingredients, besides quality, sustainability are important. You want to comment a little bit about that and how Fox continues to weave its fabrics in a traditional sense in terms of kind of quality and output?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an immense archive. Our archive goes back. The first one is older than America. The history of menswear is in those books. Huge documentations of quality cloth. We have heritage, which is great. And for me, though, it's very important to go forward. And actually, as the world changes as well, you mentioned sustainability. That's so important. And to teach people, a lot of people don't know that wool, believe it or not, comes from sheep. And, or there's some kind of maltreatment with sheep. There's not. The Australian merino wool is so well looked after. And at the end of the day as well, it's such a naturally sustainable product.
Yes.
And there is no wool in the sea. It's gone within months, whereas, we're plagued by plastics. And from probably the 60s, the world has tried to develop a cloth which is essentially a oil-based microfiber cloth, which is trying to replicate something that is actually natural, which is wool. So wool is the world's genius fiber. You could not put, as the king, who is the patron of the campaign for wool, then Prince said, it would take a university full of boffins to come up with the concept of wool, and they wouldn't be able to do it. And that's what I just love about wool. It has so many natural characteristics. It's fire retardant. It's just a wonderful fiber.
Yes. You're also, I think, part of the King's campaign for wool.
Yes, so I'm a campaign member. So we have regular campaign for wool meetings. We have them in Bradford. We have them in London. And it's a small group of individuals from the wool industry. It could be carpet, it could be building. We have weavers like myself, a lot of carpet makers as well. And since that happened, it actually started, I think, about 14 years ago in an incredibly cold barn in Cambridgeshire, where the then Prince addressed about the importance of wool. And actually the English countryside, everybody loves the English countryside and what it looks like. The stewardship is done by sheep farmers. And at one point, the farmer was having his sheep sheared and burying the wool because the price you could get for the wool was less than the price of shearing the sheep. I'm really pleased to say that actually in the last year, the prices of British wool are going up and up and up. And now farmers who've had wool stored for 5 years are now bringing into the wool board in Bradford and also in Devon. And it's a really lovely, successful story. And there is a space for English wool. People think there's a misconception that it's scratchy and itchy, but it's not ever going to be as soft as a New Zealand or an Australian wool, but it has a purpose, overcoating, tweed jackets. And, now tweed is really on trend again.
Yes.
That it's such a wonderful use for it.
Yes. You talked a bit about the vault and the archives where a lot of the innovation comes from, right? I've been fortunate enough to visit Somerset, beautiful place.
Yeah.
Much nicer than Huddersfield or Bradford.
Don't listen to Huddersfield. Don't listen to Yorkshire. Beautiful.
No, but beautiful part of town. I just would like to focus on the vault, which was really a source of inspiration for us. I think you commented in our printed interview about the look on my face when I walked into the vault. Let's talk a bit about the archives. Let's talk a bit about how beautiful it is, if you could describe it to our audience, and how it's also such a big source of inspiration for Fox collections, current and in planning. Yeah.
When I came into Fox, there was a shelf and it was full of these books. And I said, well, what are those? And they said, well, they're the guard books, the archive books. So I pulled one down. It takes about 2 people to lift one of the biggest ones. And you open it up, and it's the history of menswear. They were such a big company, and the R&D that was done at that time was just phenomenal. And often people ask, what makes Fox so special? And the archive books are very much part of the DNA. You can tell that those books have had an effect on the history of clothing, really. Luckily now it's in a fireproof walk-in vaulted room where they're already protected. So you can bring one out whenever you want. And it's really important to know that generations of designers have looked at those books for inspiration. I mean, we can never get tireless. You know, you'll see a book from 1910 and the colors are incredible. You know, we associate men with wearing quite dull colors traditionally because menswear in the early days when people used to really dress up, all the photographs were black and white. Yeah. So you have a preconceived conception that they were probably wearing greys and blues. But actually, if you look at the patterns at those days, they were quite bright. You know, they were very vibrant. And I think that's what's happening now, where you see the world is becoming more accessible. People understand a little bit more. They're finding their own style. You know, my friend met me last night in the square at Rivery, and he was wearing a pair of bright yellow trousers and a blue blazer, and he's Italian. And he looked amazing. You know, he looked amazing. It doesn't come across as being too bright. It's just the confidence.
It is also PT Umo.
Yes, that's a very good point as well.
One note on the vault. The oldest book is older than the United States of America. Yeah. And I believe I was fortunate enough to look at that particular book when I visited.
Yeah. When I found that, I was kind of, you look at a book, but actually it's the egg of your company. You know, it's the very first thing. It's dated, written clearly on the front cover, 1773, which is just 1 year after the foundation of the company. So you I never use gloves. People say, why don't you use the gloves when you open the book? Actually, we had a archivist from the V&A come and visit, and they said, whatever you do, don't use gloves. Because when you use gloves, you're thinking that the gloves are protecting, but actually, so you're a little bit more heavy-handed. Yeah. So we actually use our fingers, and we're just very, very delicate on how we open the book. But we're not precious about the book because the book has to be used. It's a recipe book, essentially. So you open it up, and there's a grey flannel in there that's exactly the same as the flannel that we weave today. Nothing's changed. The machinery that's made that, and maybe the water has changed a little bit, but essentially that is the same cloth.
And that grey flannel has been worn by Winston Churchill, by generations of leaders and influencers and just regular people.
Yeah, it's an instantly recognisable cloth because it's, as I said, it's part of the DNA, a grey flannel suit. You know, there's a film called The Man in the Grey Flannel Suit. It's a very evocative thing. Fred Astaire wore Fox. When he went to the tailor's, he would clear a space on the floor so he could dance. So it needed to be a technical fibre as well, you know, technical fabric. And you think, well, before a certain date, everything was Fox. And so people like Cary Grant wore Fox. And as you mentioned, the most famous picture of Winston Churchill is him holding the machine gun. And that is a Fox chalk striped suit. And it's clearly documented in the Henry Poole archive on Savile Row. And that's real provenance.
Yes. I remember the chest of drawers that you have in Somerset. And you were telling me you open up some of the drawers and you're still dumbfounded by what you find. And I think the William Bliss label was a label that you found not too long ago in the drawer.
Yeah. So I look at those drawers as nourishment. If you need some ideas, because sometimes you're thinking, oh, where are we going to go? Because everything in cloth has really been done. It's a continuous kind of wheel, but you can open those drawers and be dumbfounded by how they've used colour. And actually, Fox have had a history of hiding colour, which sounds quite strange. You can easily make cloths that are really kind of quite bright and vibrant. And actually, in Pity, you'll see some of those cloths. Nothing wrong with them. But we're very lucky to be able to hide colour. So it's a very English, understated approach to bright patterns. They're usually immensely commercial, but very pleasing to the eye.
I think you've summarized so much about why, as a brand, as Officina Paladino, we were so excited to do our first collaborative project with a mill which has so much history, but yet continues to stay so relevant and becoming modern in different ways. Not necessarily in the way they weave the fabrics, but in the way you market the fabrics and the way you present your collections. Let's talk a little bit about Foxa. We've talked a little about the flannel, but the Foxa is also a legendary, or say a star player, to use a World Cup analogy. And in fact, it is now overtaken the classic flannel as the best-selling bunch in the collection. So can you talk us through a little bit of the history of the Foxa cloth first, and then segue into a bit more technical details? I believe it dates back to 1930s.
About 1930s. So when I came into the business, we were pretty much a single-season business. We had flannel, we had some great overcoatings, but when it came to the summer months production, we'd kind of fall off a cliff. So we needed to fill that gap to make us much more seasonal. So I went to Hong Kong wearing a flannel suit. Do not do that. Do not do that. It's not a great experience. I think there's probably 1 week in a year that you can probably wear in Florence, in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I went to see Mark Cho at the Armory and was just thinking, this is not happening. I'm really not comfortable. So I thought we must have something in the archive. They couldn't have just survived on winter stuff. So sure enough, I went back. And it was a couple of weeks of kind of researching, pulling out different books, talking to the design team. And then for one reason or another, I just picked up one book, opened up, there was one page that said Fox Air. And the name was just incredible. And then I felt there was only a few swatches. And then it was, well, let's reweave this. And that's how it started, really, from necessity to travel and to do business.
In our written interview, we also talked about, as we've experienced weather change, right? And that's also partially why, well, I wouldn't call it summer cloth, but, not a winter fabric is now the best-selling part of your collection. And how relevant the Fox Air cloth is really as an all-year or three-season fabric.
Yeah, so I think there's no denying that the world is getting warmer. And I'm often surprised how long I'm wearing Fox Air or how early I'm starting to wear Fox Air. And it's such an easy cloth to wear. It's open set, 2-ply. So, again, the air, as the name suggests, flows through.
Very crease-resistant fabric, something great to travel with.
Yeah.
Really a fantastic cloth. While we're on the subject of Fox Air, let's talk a little bit about how we designed this collection together. Because as we talked about over lunch, you've done projects, but this is probably a larger collection that we've done as a collaborative partner, where the design process was inspired by the archives, but was also inspired by inputs externally from us. And how's that process for you, working together to come up with 15 unique articles in Fox Air and 5 articles in the mock lino weave?
Firstly, it was really lovely to have another set of outside eyes because we're in our bubble, which is great. But it's really good to have someone from a completely different territory with their needs. It's quite simple, from coloration to the cloth to the functionality of the cloth. So it's just really lovely to have a little bit of guidance. We've got the base, but having your eyes, as you say, you've got an immense history in textiles. So it's really good to impart that on our team. So it's perfect collaboration, really.
So Douglas, let's now segue into a little bit about the collection and some details. Fox Trots is the name that we have coined for the collection. What do you think about it, Douglas?
I love it. At first I was kind of like, but actually I thought, no, I really like that because Fox is such an easy word to play with. We do a Fox drop every week, where we launch a new cloth. So I love it. I love it.
It's a bit about the dance and moving in unison as collaborative partners, and it sinks in.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so good is that you've added what you needed to add. Your kind of collaboration list has been so open and easy to do. So.
Yes. The first interesting article, and I think something that talks about how we have also brought our inputs in, is the Prince of Wales. It's something that is missing in the current Fox Air collection. And that's why this is another great collaboration. We are selling Fox Air cloth, but we have a refresh of designs to all the Fox Air customers and lovers out there, for which there are many. The Prince of Wales is a traditional cloth, and it's normally with a classic blue over check on an ecru base. In this instance, with Rosemary and Patrick's input as well. And as an ode to the Palladino orange, we have added a rust color over check. What do you think about it? Has it turned out well to your satisfaction?
Yeah, I really like this because, first of all, looking at the label, that's such a great move on. Actually being, over 250 years, we have quite a few labels. And every time I see a collaboration label, it's really lovely to see how the brand evolves. And I think this particular cloth here, with the deco being in the orange, as I was saying, we hide color. So it probably essentially, if you saw that yarn as just as the yarn, it would be super bright orange. But actually, when it's woven in with these other brown colors, it gives that lovely kind of rust look. In other lights, it's slightly brighter. I love decos because it's such an easy thing to pair a tie with, pair a shirt with. It's just enough detail to make it different.
Yes.
Great.
A bit about the label. I'm sure you recognize it, but the inspiration was the Fox Spot label.
Yes.
So we took something from you and kind of tweaked it a little bit with our orange coloring. And yeah, I think it's turned out fantastic as well.
Yeah, you happy with it?
I'm super excited
Good,
about it, super
good.
happy about it. So we're not going to go into detail for every cloth. Everything will be available in stock supported bunches in about a month. There are details on our website as they will be on the Fox Flannel website. But just some highlights with another Prince of Wales here. This is something that I would like to talk about. It is tricolor check.
I love this.
Yes, I was wearing one of them yesterday. And that's another thing that we talked about fabrics. It's one thing looking at it in a big feeler on a card, and the other thing when you see the realization of the suit. I was slightly apprehensive whether I could pull it off, but I think I did okay. Hopefully everybody else thinks so.
Beautiful suit. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I thought it looked really good.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for the compliment. But no, I think the unique thing about these two designs is the fact that it's incorporating 3 colors of yarns versus the usual 2 colors of yarns, which are currently in the Fox Air running bunch. So I think it's another twist that we very successfully incorporated into the latest Fox Air collection.
Yeah, I love these, and seeing you wearing it yesterday, I have some suits, but every time I see something new or a collaboration, or you see, as you say, you see it like this, flat, and it says one thing, but you see it made up. It says something totally different. And then, it's like, well, I think I'm going to have another suit made. Luckily for me, I'm a walking salesman. So it kind of helps the process.
There's a marketing budget for these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. They're beautiful. And I love the 3 colors from that.
Then, of course, we have classic checks, and these are all going to be much more evident in the planes that we talk about. But the way we've designed these together is really kind of using the iconic Fox Air yarns. And I would like to talk about that later because I think that's a very unique DNA, the olives, the oatmeal, the walnuts, the colors that you're able to achieve. And we've played around with twisting these yarns in different ways. So using the same raw ingredients, but just twisting them in different ways across the warp and the weft to achieve new patterns, right? I mean, that's how fabric design happens. I'm actually very excited about these as well. The green has tinge of olive in there. It has a little bit of a brighter sheen to it. Not too bright, but quite excited about these two as well.
Yeah. These remind me of very Tuscan colours.
Yes.
They look like our surrounding the hills if I'm looking out the window here.
Yes.
This has definitely got that kind of Florentine vibe to them, which is absolutely perfect. Kind of, again, that hidden colour. It's not a crazy pattern because from a distance, it's almost like wearing like a texture.
Yes.
So for people that are not kind of wanting to go heavy on pattern or maybe on the first, second suits, absolutely a winner. Beautiful. And you've got such a good eye for colours there.
Coming down to something that is very iconic with Fox is the Madras. And we struggled to design this a little bit because, we like the Negroni flannel where you brought in some color.
Yeah.
And so my original mind was to try and incorporate some of the palette, orange into it. And we've iterated with this quite a bit with the team. It just didn't turn out perfectly. And I cannot remember who it was when said, why don't we use the Madras in the Fox Air collection and just switch the colors? And it's turned out we were fortunate enough to have a few gentlemen dressed in a variety of the fabrics at our event yesterday.
I saw that.
Which was
really
fantastic,
good,
by the way.
Another jacket.
Yes. So the Madras is also something that I'm very, very happy with. And it's just a very iconic Fox fabric, right? So that's the beauty about the collaboration, I feel, where we've taken, we've not tried to recreate the wheel. We're using the same ingredients, the same inspirations with a new perspective and jointly. Really, the word I think is jointly, and that's why this is such a perfect collaboration.
Bab, will you get one of these?
I will. I will.
I love that. And you just see how versatile that is. You can dress that almost brightly. I'm wearing white linens today, but it's great. Work with navy, work with chocolate browns.
Even on denim, on a casual jacket on denim,
absolutely.
I think it will look great.
Yeah, because it's got almost that kind of indigo kind of look to it as well with that beautiful burnt walnut. Beautiful.
Stripes. We talked about the chalk stripes in the flannel collection. We talked about how stripes are just part of menswear history, but they're increasingly becoming very fashionable again as well. We've drawn inspiration from the shadow stripes, the shadow chalk stripes, I like to call it. And what we've done with them is we've widened the stripes a little bit because, we thought that gives it a bit more of a modern sprezzatura feel to it. We've played with colors, obviously, especially the olive with the taupe chalk stripe, which has just come out beautifully.
Yeah, I love that.
We're very, very excited about this as well.
Yeah, I love these. Such a classic pattern. But as you say, recently this kind of stripe has become
Yes.
really, really on trend. And you would see people wearing a suit without a tie, and it looks absolutely fantastic. As you're wearing today, that kind of blue. Can you imagine that stripe at the weekend with a chambray shirt?
Yes.
And obviously you can dress it up really well, going to a more formal function.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. And then the classic
Yes.
charcoal.
Yeah.
Lovely.
We talked about this a bit briefly just now, and I would like to talk about it a little bit more before we complete the rest of the collection, is how Fox is able to produce these unique colors, especially kind of the walnuts, the olives, which I think are very unique to Fox. I think you cannot find these colors across the United Kingdom. Is that something that the team spent a lot of time on to get these beautiful colors?
Yeah, really interesting question. And these olives and these browns,
Yes.
the walnuts, are inspired by this hotel. Coming to Florence, coming to Pitti,
Yes.
and, we have very beautiful colours. We have very quite traditional colours. And as the climate changes as well, colours change.
Yes.
Because you have these breathable fabrics. I just think these are so kind of
Yes.
summer. They're very muted. They look like the old buildings. They
Yes.
blend into the environment so well. All of these colours. Can you imagine just wearing these? I know I'm hot, so I'm thinking that, all these colours work so beautifully with a crisp white linen shirt,
Yes.
a pair of loafers, and you're out there, you're out on the street and
Under the Tuscan sun.
under the Tuscan sun, yeah. And I think it's all those kind of beautiful romantic films, Room with a View, all based on Florence the Grand Tour, Shelley, people coming through this. After all, it's the most magnificent city. I recommend going around very, very early in the morning.
Yes.
And you'd really, really appreciate where the colours come from.
Yes. Like the first one you hold is, we've taken the walnut and the olive, two of the most iconic colors in the Fox collection, and kind of twisted them together to get just this unique, beautiful shade. Patrick was wearing this at lunch today, and you know, it looks different under different lights. And while it's, as a fabric designer, fabric merchant, I would say it's easier to come up with unique, fancy designs.
Yes.
But the plain designs are always tough. And I think we've done a wonderful job. This is kind of indigo and olive put together. We've played with different yarns, which are part of the Fox arsenal, the Fox library, and kind of been able to create a new product. And I think very satisfied with how the plains have come out. They are fully complementary, but unique to what is already running in the current Fox.
Yeah, lovely. That is spectacular.
Yes.
Absolutely spectacular.
So you've got 3 new suits now.
3 new suits. You would think these colours wouldn't work, but they so do.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful. And as you say, different lights give you different colours.
Yes.
Yeah, I just love those. I think they're really lovely. Yeah, probably another one or 2.
Fantastic. Again, the collection will be available, stock supported in about a month. In fact, goods are already produced. We're just in the process of getting everything organized and ready. A very interesting thing to know about the collection is that it's going to be stocked in Singapore with us, and also stocked in Somerset in the UK. And I think that logistically, it's definitely more environmentally friendly, less of a carbon footprint, more sustainable, but also more efficient.
Yeah, and also that's a really good point. By buying well, presumably people are going to look after their suits, jackets. So that's all part of the sustainable.
Yes,
just buy less, look after it, and choose well, choose quality.
So those 3 suits are going to last you a decade, right?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I probably need to live another 9 lives.
Let's talk about one of the part of the collection which has been getting a lot of interest, which is what we are wearing today. Coincidentally, was not planned. We even have the same pocket skirt. We'll talk about that at the end of the conversation. We're going to have a poll later, who wore it better. Please be kind to me. But we have in the mock lino weave. So how is the Fox Air mock lino cloth different from the traditional Fox Air suiting?
It's a slightly heavier yarn. And we've had a mock lino in the past.
Yes.
Good cloth.
Yes.
But this is perfect.
Yes.
This is absolutely...
And I think this is using a different yarn, because this is using a Fox Air yarn.
And just by me feeling this, that there's nothing. I've done nothing to it. Not even scratched the surface of it.
Yes.
This is one of those, I've had this, believe it or not, I don't have a blue blazer until this one. So this is my first
blue blazer.
Standalone blue blazer. And the reason I've got that, because it's really nice to have something that, well, when you travel like me on a plane, when you get on a plane, there's nothing worse than putting your you fold your jacket, and then someone comes behind with an overhead case, goes, this will totally tolerate that. It's kind of one of those essential bulletproof jackets. One thing of when I'm flying and traveling, I always wear one complete smart outfit, purely for the reason that I've had far too many bags go missing or lost. So at least you've got one decent outfit for the week. And this is why I've got this one, because I just know that this is going to last. It breathes. It's, I can get by most of the year wearing this jacket as well. If you want to put a little sweater under it, such a versatile cloth. And what you've done with the colors is just so good.
True story. This is the only jacket which I have not steamed since I got to Florence. So it's literally out the suitcase on hanger. Didn't have to do anything to it this morning. And in the Fox Mock Leno collection, you'll find 3 plains and 2 beautiful, kind of subtle overchecks, which to me are really highlights of the collection. I've been getting a lot of interest in this, and I think this will be your 4th jacket.
I know it's going to be my 4th. Because I love that.
Please.
Because it's all about where you are and your feelings, your mood. I saw this in Somerset. It's a lovely cloth. I'm sitting here in Florence. I'm thinking, this is a stunning cloth. It's, it just changes how you feel about things and how you're going to wear them, how you're going to plan them. But it's definitely we know it's a quality cloth. This is a real investment. Get this made by your best tailor or who you're most comfortable with, but this is a real keeper.
So I've asked you off camera, and I think you've answered it a little bit, but I've asked you before, what is your favorite fabric in the collection? And you said it depends on which day you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And where I am. I think it's 38 degrees outside. So probably flannel's not my go-to at the moment, but definitely a fox air. And also when you're in this kind of environment, you're thinking about what next, how light can we go? And I think as our relationship grows, we'll be developing other cloths. We've got the wool linen that I was wearing a striped version of the other day. I just know that that's where we're going to be going next.
Beautiful segue. You talked about our first collaboration, and we're really looking forward to the next collaboration. I mean, I think that's something which we will definitely be very, very keen to do. We want to keep looking forward, keep innovating, keep trusting quality, trusted partners, and producing more and more fabrics for the world.
Yeah. And thank you so much for bringing such a wonderful crowd of people to the event yesterday. A lot of people I've never met. And isn't that a great part of our industry? I mean, we're very lucky anyway. We are so lucky, but to be involved and know these wonderful people that have real passion for quality, which is, again, is sustainable, because they will impart that knowledge to their friends. Hopefully their friends will say, gosh, you look good. Where did you get that? And that's how the ball, rolls. Do take a little bit of pride about how you dress. It's really important, I think, and it is sustainable. But yeah, thank you for the party yesterday. It's so good.
I think we maybe had, I don't know how many nationalities represented. I mean, that's the beauty of PT, but I think that was the beauty of our joint efforts to can also bring like-minded individuals together into one place. We had a lot of fun. I didn't bang out the foxtrot, I didn't bang out the dance, but I had a lot of fun. I think we can end on this note because we've had a wonderful chat. This is maybe a symbol of the collaboration, right? We've taken, just as a bit of fun, this was a giveaway at the event yesterday. It's not for sale. And I think, Douglas, when I sent you the initial artwork and rendering for this, I sent you a couple of options and your eye quickly went to this. Not for sale, but hey, we'll produce a few more and we'll give them to our top selling customers. But it's really a great memorabilia about the collaboration. Officine Palladino, Fox Brothers, our logos together in one.
And made in Como by our friend Paolo?
Yes, printed by our friend Paolo, hand-rolled in silk.
So good.
It's amazing how small the world is.
It is.
Yet we still meet new people and new individuals. Our industry is very small. But I think, you ended it on the perfect note. We had a great time putting this together over the last 18 months. We had an even better time yesterday at the launch party. To top it out, I had dinner with Douglas and, Douglas at midnight after a day out and a couple of drinks. It's just that's for the privileged few. Maybe next year we'll do a dinner. We'll make it big. We'll get a lot of people drunk and we'll just have a conversation.
Be great. And we got to say thank you to Viri and Alina who opened the Truffle Bar where we had the event. It was their first event. And last week they were saying to me, we kind of need the work surfaces on there. I was like, okay. But they did it, and congratulations. What a fantastic achievement. And beautiful images that we're going to have from that event that we can all share, and it's just wonderful.
Yes, I talked about the Hermitage Hotel in the beginning of this, but thank you again. They've been very, very warm. It's an amazing hotel. And I think we'll do our event here next year again.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Douglas, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Brilliant.